Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. April 13th, 2018.
The Kuhner Report is powered by Kelly Financial Services. Cleaning up your financial bull. Get the peace of mind that you deserve at Kelly Financial Services.
105 here on the great WRKO. Okay, my friends. So, we're going to continue to take your calls, by the way, on the Comey book. And who do you think the public will end up believing? Comey or the president? 617-266-6868. But first, a Kuhner country debate. As you know, I have a column which I posted yesterday urging President Trump to fire Special Counsel Robert Mueller in the wake of the outrageous raid by Mueller and his allies in the FBI on Michael Cohen, Trump's personal lawyer, his office, and his home. Well, a lot of conservatives disagree with me, and they actually think that it would be a big, big mistake for President Trump to fire Robert Mueller. And one of them, who has just published her own column, strongly disagreeing with me, I have to say it's a very well-written, well-argued column, is, of course, Dr. Grace. Dr. Grace Vuoto, putting liberals in their place. She is the communications director at the Boston Broadside. She is also a former editorial writer and columnist at the Washington Times. She's also my better half. Her column is up at thebostonbroadside.com. It is called Trump Under Siege. And joining us now is Dr. Grace Vuoto. Dr. Grace, how are you today?
I am well. Thank you for having me on, Jeff.
So, okay, I read your column. I obviously disagree with it, but I have to say it's very surgical, it's very lucid, it's very powerfully argued, and there's one particular paragraph that really caught my attention. You said that the president is being urged by many supporters to start firing members of the Justice Department. Conservative talk radio host Mark Levin is demanding that Trump fire Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Former campaign strategist Steve Bannon suggests ousting Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein for putting himself in charge of the Russia investigation following the recusal of Sessions. And Fox Business television host Lou Dobbs is calling for Sessions to give Special Counsel Robert Mueller the boot. So I'm looking at Steve Bannon, I'm looking at Mark Levin, I'm looking at Lou Dobbs. Everybody's name is mentioned except me. And I'm like, well, what am I, chopped liver? I mean, I'm just curious. How come you didn't bother to mention me in that list of prominent conservatives asking for Trump to fire people at the Justice Department? Well, I don't matter anymore.
Of course you do. I just wanted to avoid a discussion about our own relationship, and did I put you in there because we're married, et cetera, then have to write a disclaimer about adding you. So I thought, you know what, let me summarize some of the key players, and I think, a lot of people know that you're also on board calling for these firings.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Now, go ahead. And on a serious note, so you make a very strong case, and I want to make sure that your side is heard. So why do you think Trump should not fire Sessions, Rosenstein, or Mueller?
Okay, well, the first thing that everyone has to really focus on right now is that when it comes to what was done to Michael Cohen, a lot of the facts have not yet been fully reported. So we don't know exactly what they may charge him with. We don't know what kind of evidence they have. We don't even know how stringent or not were the standards used for the warrant. So that's really important. You have to have all the facts before we can start saying what should be done. So the facts regarding Cohen are not in. But even if we had them before us, what we do know is that if you fire all three of those or any one of them, at this point, it won't make a difference. The case against Cohen is going to proceed regardless of who is at the Justice Department, because that is going through the Southern District of New York. So nothing that happens in Washington, D.C. is going to stop that case right now. In addition, if they find any linkage of criminal activity, which is what they're suggesting by this extreme action of pursuing a lawyer, if they find any linkage between Cohen and Trump of any kind of criminal activity, even the hint of it, that puts a stop right there to Trump being able to do anything regarding a firing, because there's obvious conflict of interest. In addition, what I really want to emphasize is that right now Trump is in a box. Almost everywhere he turns, he's in a box. That case is going to proceed in the Southern District of New York no matter what, so he's boxed in. Trying to fire the special counsel without the support of his own party is absolute madness. I mean, the only way he could do anything like that, like fire Sessions, fire Rosenstein to get ultimately Mueller fired, he would have to have his own party behind him. Right now, there's already moves about trying to block him legislatively. I think if he does anything like that, it's only going to prolong investigations, because then you're going to add on top of it that we have to pursue him further for obstruction of justice. So without his party on board, he's in a box. He really can't do it. There's no political path to doing it. And finally, you've got to consider that he is facing potentially a tsunami, a blue wave in the midterms. And the Democrats are itching to impeach him, and they're going to use any firing right now as a justification for trying to oust him. So everywhere you turn, he is in a box. And my strong suggestion to him, as somebody that wants to see him break out of these chains, break out of this madness, my strong suggestion is, for right now, do nothing. The president is in quicksand. When you're in quicksand, the more you move, the more you sink. He has to stay perfectly still. It's very difficult. What I'm suggesting is say nothing, write nothing, tweet nothing, do nothing right now. Because there's only one way for him to break out of all these boxes. If it is true, as he has claimed from the very beginning, that he is completely innocent of any and all wrongdoing, this fact is the only fact that is going to ultimately matter, and it is going to be the fact that is going to save him. In fact, it's going to be such a powerful fact that it will save him, and it will ultimately destroy everybody who has tried to claim otherwise. I've said this many, many times. It's a saying that I return to again and again. The truth has a very big mouth. Trump needs to just wait and let the truth come out. I want you to consider this, Jeff. Look, we have the House has pursued a very long 14-month investigation. And what did the House conclude? The House concluded that there is no collusion. The House has even concluded that any Russian interference was in part used to benefit Trump, but in part trying to benefit Hillary. So they have gone even further in casting doubt upon the intelligence community claims that the Russians were trying to help Trump. So if the House committee is one piece of the puzzle, what does that tell us? That piece of the puzzle bolsters Trump's claims that he is completely innocent. So just wait. Because if that fact holds still, the two Senate committees are going to have to conclude the same thing. And then regardless of what Mueller concludes, you have all these committees possibly at odds with the special counsel. So you create a situation where the best for the Democrats is a very muddied case against the president, and that's not going to be good enough to impeach him.
So basically you're saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but get a good legal team of constitutional criminal lawyers. Let the booming economy continue to grow. That's going to improve the public mood, build up your political capital. Don't give them any grounds to try to impeach you. And eventually the truth will set Donald Trump free. Am I correct?
You're 100% correct. And you know, Jeff, look, I listened to the whole hour of your discussion with Comey. You know what the headline of the Comey book is? Comey has no evidence against Donald Trump. That's the real headline. There's no evidence. You have the FBI director who's written this book, The Higher Loyalty. Look at me. I'm so important. I'm so high up in the loyalty chain here. I'm loyal to God himself. And what is Comey reporting ultimately? All this salacious garbage that amounts to one big pile of nothing. It is the FBI director. He saw all the documents. He knows what there is. The big headline is, Comey has nothing to say. That's the headline. The House is going to say, we have nothing. It's 14 months of nothing. So what I would suggest to Donald Trump is, keep your cool. Don't engage in a tit for tat. This only fuels the narrative that there might be something because he's so nervous, because he's hiding something. So just keep your cool, laugh off some things and say, if that's how they want to spend the taxpayers' dollars, let them. Right now, I can't stop it. Ultimately, they will look like fools.
We have been talking with Dr. Grace Vuoto. She's the communications director of the Boston Broadside. She has a new column up. You can read it yourself at bostonbroadside.com. It's called Trump Under Siege. And she actually argues the very opposite of what I argue, saying, forget firing Mueller. Don't fire Sessions. Don't fire Rosenstein. Just do nothing, because in the end, the truth will vindicate the president. Dr. Grace, I want to play a clip of Alan Dershowitz, highly respected lawyer, professor emeritus at Harvard Law School, and he also disagrees with you. He says that Sessions should have never, ever recused himself, and that he should have told the president ahead of time, because then Trump would have never hired him. Roll it, Brittany.
I think Jeff Sessions engaged in wrongful conduct by not telling the president before he was appointed that I'm going to recuse myself. The president never would have appointed him. The president doesn't want a part-time attorney general. He would have had a nice conversation saying, I appreciate you're recusing yourself, but I need a full-time attorney general.
Yep. So you even have Alan Dershowitz saying that his own attorney general screwed Trump, shafted Trump, because I think, Dr. Grace, what you're missing, with all due respect, is two key points. Number one, they have essentially paralyzed the Trump presidency. Whether, it's not a question anymore about truth. I think you're being very optimistic about this. I look at it in a much more cynical, Machiavellian way. They got their special counsel, and he has now been bleeding the president, paralyzing the president. He's almost impossible for him to do anything but fend off these attacks. You've got the attorney general who stabbed him in the back. You've got Rod Rosenstein, who's got a blatant conflict of interest. He should be in jail, frankly. He's the one that appointed Robert Mueller. So he's got a conspiracy in which his own Justice Department is at war with him. His own FBI is at war with him. And then, to me, this is the mother of all points. They have now seized all of Trump's and Cohen's privileged communications. What that means is, forget Russia. They're not going to get him on Russia, but they're going to get him on something else. And as I said to you when we discussed this last night, if you, and I know you're crystal clear, okay, you are as clean can be. If there was a special counsel barreling down on you, going through everything you've ever done for the last 10 to 15 years, the federal code is so big and bulky, they're going to find something. And so they're going to get Trump on some technicality or some illegal violation of the law, somehow, some way. And I think that's what you're misunderstanding. The longer this thing goes, the more Trump's going to be in danger, because they're going to be going through every document with a fine-tooth comb. So it'll be a land deal. It'll be a financial transaction. It'll be his taxes in 2004. He paid whatever, $1,000 less than he should have. They're going to get him on something. That's the problem.
Well, Jeff, there's two problems with your argument. Number one, with all due respect to you and Alan Dershowitz, did Sessions know beforehand that he was going to recuse himself? The way I understood it, he did not. He only recused himself after there was intense scrutiny regarding what he had put forward regarding his interaction with the Russians. There was such public backlash that he made decision based on that to protect himself.
Hold on.
So
hold on, Dr. Grace. I don't mean to cut you off, but hold on. But he didn't inform the president. He publicly recused himself without ever telling Trump about it beforehand. He was ethically obligated to tell the president, as your attorney general, I want you to know I'm going to be recusing myself from all matters related to Russia. Now, he knew that the moment he said that to the president, as Alan Dershowitz rightly points out, whoa, you're going to be a part-time attorney general. No. Jeff, we'll get you for another job, but I'm not going to keep you as my attorney general. I'm not going to hire you as my attorney general.
Jeff, he was already hired. He was Trump's biggest backer and biggest supporter. He didn't want to harm the president. He was just doing what he thought would allow an investigation to go forward and let it be a pristine investigation. His intention was not to harm Trump. He helped elect Trump. So let me just answer everything you said.
Okay, but hold on. But his actions, hold on, Dr. Grace, we're not arguing about his motives or his intentions. The fact that he recused himself opened the door to Mueller. His actions did end up hurting Trump. That's the point. Whether he intended to or not is irrelevant. And if you're going to recuse yourself from something so big as the attorney general, I think you owe it to the president to tell him beforehand, before you announce it to the entire public. He railroaded, he blindsided the president. I mean, you don't see a problem with that?
Well, look, you're talking about a matter of procedure. Should he have told him before he did it or go ahead and do it? I think that's small potatoes. The real catalyst in all this was when Trump fired Comey. That set in motion, a terrible chain of events. I'm not saying you shouldn't have fired him, but I'm saying that was the real action that triggered the special counsel. But let me answer everything before you go on, Jeff. And then you keep saying that Mueller's going to find something. Mueller's going to get him. Well, you are creating a tremendous amount of anxiety. I'm not saying that you're doing it in any malicious sense, but you're talking about something you don't know for sure. Look at the House Intelligence Committee. They found nothing. I mean, how do we know what's going to happen in the future? So you're telling the president to do something right now based on something that you in your crystal ball see is going to happen in the future. And what I'm saying is anything that Trump does right now is going to make matters worse. Jeff, look, you and I are on the same side. We want Trump to finish his term. We want the people to see that he's a great leader. We want him to get a second term. And I'm saying the best way to do that right now is calm down. If you're innocent, they will not get you. They cannot get you. They need evidence to get you. Now, you keep saying, well, Mueller's going to find something. Well, you're talking about the future. That's speculative. Let's see what he finds. And then let's talk about it then, based on whatever it is.
Do you know, let me ask you this, Dr. Grace.
Didn't sign a form properly. Well, we're all going to laugh at that. Is that all you got?
Nah,
maybe a backlash.
No, I think the Democrats will impeach. But, Dr. Grace, I'm way over. I've got 1 minute. Let's just end it right here. Do you know what the federal conviction rate is in federal court?
What is it?
97%. 97%. When the feds decide to charge you with something, it's basically almost like in Stalin's Russia. It's a slam dunk. So what I'm trying to tell you is the sharks are circling the president of the United States. And if they want to get him, they're going to get him. And I think that's where you and I disagree. The House Intelligence Committee stuck to Russia. Mueller's made it clear he's going after hush payments to porn stars. He's not going after the Access Hollywood Billy Bush tape. Why is he going after the Billy Bush tape? I'll tell you why. Because he wants to see if maybe Trump actually told his lawyer, hey, I actually did grab someone by the pee. In other words, they're fishing. And when you fish, you're going to find something. Am I wrong?
Yes. Mueller kicked the case regarding Cohen to the Southern District of New York. So we're again talking about something we don't have all the facts on. So what I suggest is we continue the debate when more facts come out. I hold to my point of view, and thank you so much for allowing me to express it, Jeff.
All right. We've been talking with my better half, Dr. Grace Vuoto. You can catch her column. You can read it at thebostonbroadside.com. Trump under siege. Dr. Grace, can you do me a favor the next time you write a column on this? Can you do me a big favor? Can you put my freaking name in there? Humor me.
I will, and I want to assure the audience, Jeff is not sleeping on the couch. We actually think this is a really good time, a very helpful exercise. We don't mind being on the opposite side. You see, we have true tolerance in our household.
Dr. Grace,
disagree and still admire one another.
Honestly, I thought you did a very good job and a great piece, although I disagree. Thanks so much for coming on, and I'll see you soon.
My pleasure.
All right, take care. 617-266-6868. So let me ask you, do you agree with my wife or do you agree with me? 129 here on the great WRKO. Okay, that debate with Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place went a little bit long, so I got to go to a news break, but I promise I'll be taking your calls. And anti-Semitism is also now on the rise, not just in America, but here in Massachusetts. I've got a stunning story for you. Cambridge is now ground zero in Jew-hating and anti-Semitism. But first, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, yes, baby, is reportedly preparing for the possibility that Trump may fire him. Evan Heidenrich is in the WRKO newsroom. He's got all of those details. Pray tell, Eric, what are they?
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
136 here on the great WRKO. Okay, my friends, should Trump fire Mueller? We'll continue taking your calls. Comey. He now has his latest book out, blasting the president. The president now calls him an untrustworthy slimeball, a liar and a leaker. The war between Comey and Trump, who's winning, who's losing, it's all on the table. But I would be remiss if I didn't draw your attention to a very important story. Polls now show that across Europe, there is an historic surge, a rise in anti-Semitism, the likes they have not seen literally since World War II. In England, in France, in Italy, in Germany. And not just now in Europe, but here in Massachusetts, there is also now a frightening rise in anti-Semitism, and Cambridge may be ground zero in that in the epicenter of this growing hatred for the Jews and the Jewish people. And so coming on now to discuss it is not just an expert on this, but a man that I admire very much, Dr. Charles Jacobs. He is with Americans for Peace and Tolerance. Dr. Jacobs, welcome back to the Kuhner Report.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
So just for the audience out there who are probably not familiar with this story, what is going on in Cambridge that has alarmed you and is alarming many in the Jewish community in Boston and Massachusetts?
Well, everybody in the Jewish community now is all together on this, except the crazy left-wing fringes. But the entire Jewish establishment is shocked and horrified that on April 23rd, the Cambridge City Council is going to vote on an anti-Israel BDS resolution that would have the city divest from Hewlett-Packard for doing business with the Jewish state. This is nothing less than an anti-Semitic boycott of the world's only Jewish nation. Look, Jeff, just yesterday, Jews around the world commemorated the Holocaust, the horrors of the Holocaust, and we recalled that the first thing that the Nazis did after they demonized us was to boycott Jewish businesses and punish those people who did business with the Jews. So now we see this is coming again. The Arab League, even before there was a Jewish state, had a boycott of Jews in the 1920s, certainly before there was a so-called occupation. So boycotts have been used against Jews historically. This is a Nazi-like boycott of the Jews, an Arab League boycott of the Jews, and it's dressed up in human rights language. And it's done in Cambridge, a city that prides itself as being a liberal beacon of tolerance. This is, to ethnically profile the world's only Jewish nation is evil. And it's utter hypocrisy. Look at what's happening in the world, and they're picking on the Jews. Singling out the Jews for criticism is the hallmark of anti-Semitism.
Dr. Jacobs.
The Cambridge City Council looks at the world. They see Christians are being pushed out of their lands. Christian women are being raped. Men are being crucified. Churches are bombed. No resolution from City Council. There's no proposed boycotts of companies that do business in the Middle East where gays are murdered, where thrown off roofs, burned alive, where blacks are enslaved, bought and sold. So if this is not a target against one people who are only defending themselves against millions who are surrounding them and have declared that they want to demolish the Jewish state, then what is it? And I can tell you that, there's been a lot of tussle within the Jewish community on a lot of things, but this time everybody is on board. We're horrified and we're shocked. And if the people there want to defend or supporters of the Jewish state of Israel and of Western civilization, I might add, you should be at the Cambridge City Hall, 5 o'clock on April 23rd.
We're talking with Dr. Charles Jacobs, a man I greatly admire. He is with Americans for Peace and Tolerance. Dr. Jacobs, just for our audience, because, there's some inside baseball terms that you use that maybe some of them are not familiar with.
Sure.
So when you say the BDS, what does BDS mean for our audience? And the Cambridge City Council, why are they going after just Hewlett-Packard? Is it just them, or are they trying to go after any corporation that tries to do business with the Jewish state, with the state of Israel?
Okay, so BDS is boycott, divestment, and sanction. This is all over the college campuses. It's funded by the hard left, by the George Soros types, and also by the Arab and Muslim world. And this is meant to single out the Jewish people in Israel for punishment for supposed crimes. And this is a development that's been happening on college campuses around the country, and in Europe. So it's BDS. And this one is divestment, the D. They're targeting Hewlett-Packard because it's an easier target for them. They want to pick out one. This is from the Saul Alinsky, rule book, handbook. You pick out one and you go after them because Hewlett-Packard does things with intelligence and artificial intelligence and certain things that it does with the Israeli government that enemies of the Jews who think that the Jews don't have the right to defend themselves can pick on. This campaign is a combination, was done by a combination of the Quakers. I mean, the Quakers today are not your grandfather's Quakers.
The Quakers?
They've turned radical.
Wow.
An anti-Semitic Jewish group called Jewish Voice for Peace, because we do have those, and some of the old Bernie Sanders groups. After his post-election group evolved or devolved into something called Our Revolution. So those three groups, have been lobbying the Cambridge City councilors for months and months and months. They endorsed several of them when they ran for office, and very sneakily, the Jewish Voice for Peace, which is an anti-Jewish group, went in and snookered a lot of these, some of these councilmen to tell them to make them think that this is the Jewish community desire. So it was very sneaky.
If this passes the Cambridge City Council, and you said they're going to vote on it April 23rd, and I'm urging everybody, please show up and tell them no. Let your voice be heard. But just for the sake of argument, it passes the Cambridge City Council. What impact would this have on Hewlett-Packard? Can it go? I mean, can it hurt Hewlett-Packard? Can it have a serious effect on Hewlett-Packard?
Well, not immediately, and I don't think so at the moment, because Hewlett-Packard is a giant, and all they're going to be able to do is to tell the Cambridge City councilors, you can't use Cambridge funds to buy Hewlett-Packard computers and printers. That's not so important, but it will send a signal around the country to all of these groups. And now don't forget, this is a movement from the campuses to the city halls. As these students who've become radicalized on the campuses graduate and move into cities and have lives in cities, they are connecting to local politics. And they already have relationships with the left wing of the Democratic Party or the fringe left in city and state politics. We've seen this already when the State House, in the Massachusetts State House, was convinced by the left here, the organized left here, not to stop a BDS endeavor, not to outlaw the boycott of Israel. So this is part of a bigger movement from campuses now, and we see it into local politics. So it may not be that important. It's not going to hurt Hewlett-Packard what happens on next week, but it's going to send a signal one way or another, about the legitimacy of the Jewish people and their state, and B, what are the possibilities of organizing against Israel in city halls and
I think bingo.
Capitals.
I agree with you. In fact, look, my prediction is, and that's why I think this is so important, that's why I'm saying Cambridge is becoming ground zero in Massachusetts. I can easily see Boston following Cambridge, Somerville following Cambridge, Chelsea following Cambridge. I mean, this thing is going to spread like wildfire. So I've got to ask you the $64,000 question. Why this alliance between the radical left, which is Cambridge, and radical Islam, which both of whom clearly now have formed an alliance against the Jews, against the state of Israel, and now increasingly are dominated by anti-Semitism. Why is the radical left teaming up with the Islamists?
Now, that's a very good question, because how would you ever think that the people who love bikinis would embrace the people who love burqas, right? How can that be? The people who say they love freedom are embracing people who throw you off a roof if you're a homosexual. Well, the answer is simple in a way if you step back. Both of these ideologies, radical leftism and radical Islam, want a one-world system. For the Muslims, it's a caliphate. For the left, it's a one-worldism, United Nationsism. It used to be the dictatorship of the proletariat. They both of them also are vehemently, emotionally opposed to Judaism and Christianity and Western civilization's gems of liberalism and free speech. And both of them are against the United States. So those are the things that make this very seemingly unlikely alliance dominate in parts of Europe. And by the way, you mentioned it as we began, the Jews of Europe are now leaving Europe precisely because of this alliance between the left and the Muslims. And if it's the Jews first, as we know from history, it'll be the rest of the decent people afterwards.
Dr. Charles Jacobs, we have literally 2 minutes left. I want to ask you another very important question. As an American Jew, obviously a little bit older, you're not a spring chicken, as I'm, me neither. I'm not a spring chicken either. Did you ever think you would see the day where we now have the latest opinion polls, absolutely shocking, whereby 40% of millennials now admit that they do not know anything about the Holocaust. They don't even know what Auschwitz was. So you have 40% of young people who literally know nothing about the Holocaust, know nothing about Auschwitz, know nothing about the Jewish death camps. Do you think that's also part of the left's agenda to eventually turn the population against the state of Israel?
Yes, in a way it is, because the left are Palestinianists, and they're Palestinianists because they hate Western civilization. These are mostly white people in America who feel guilty about their so-called privilege, who think that they live on undeserved wealth, who feel guilty about Western sins, quote unquote, about imperialism, about all the things that the West did, although we've corrected most of all the bad things we did. And they need to go out in front and say, I'm not a bad white guy, I'm the good white guy, And that's why I stand first and foremost against the West and against Israel, which is really a gem of the West. And so they're tired of hearing Jews talk about 6 million murdered. Yeah, we know that happened, but look what you're doing to the Palestinians, they'll tell you, right? And so they want to point the Holocaust back at the Jews and charge us with with genocide, which is horrific, which is the biggest horrific lie. I mean, if the Jews meant to do genocide in the Palestinians, we're very untalented. The Palestinians are gaining in population, gaining in education, gaining in every one of the measures of a good life. So, but this is part of it, and they don't want to hear about Jewish suffering, and they want to turn it against us with this outrageous charge that the Zionists are the new Nazis. You will hear this from these people in Cambridge. So you're right. And it's a shame that it's terrible, and it's a tragedy that people don't, the young people don't understand what happened when fascism raises its ugly head and when the government takes away all of your freedoms and free speech. They really ought to learn that lesson today.
We have been talking with Charles Jacobs. He is with Americans for Peace and Tolerance. Charles, can you please tell everybody where they can get more information and give out, please, the date and the time where people can show up to voice their disapproval and opposition to what the Cambridge City Council is doing?
Well, it's at 5 o'clock. Well, 5:30 is the hearing, but 5 o'clock you better be there if you want to be there at the Cambridge City Hall on April 23rd, which is the Monday after this one. People can get information about this by going to the Anti-Defamation League website, the Combined Jewish Philanthropies website, Americans for Peace and Tolerance, all of the Jewish groups now. This is you've heard of us fighting between ourselves from time to time. All of the Jewish groups now are outraged about this, and any one of the main Jewish groups will have a big flyer close to their webpage on this.
Great. So you're going to be there?
Yes.
Are you going to be videotaping the event?
I think people will be videotaping.
Okay. Can you do me a favor? Can you have your people be there, videotape the event? I want to post it on WRKO.com/Kuhner, and I'd like for you to come on the following day on Tuesday to give all of us a report of what happened, because I think this is an immensely important story.
Thank you very much. I will.
Thank you. Keep up the good fight.
Thank you.
God bless you. Dr. Charles Jacobs, Americans for Peace and Tolerance. My friends, anti-Semitism is rearing its ugly head. Cambridge has now become ground zero, and it's time we said enough is enough. More with your calls next. 1:55 here on the great WRKO. Okay, coming up at 2:05. You don't want to miss it. A tragic shooting, the murder of a police officer in Cape Cod, along with his canine partner, a police dog called Nero. It is a crime that has shocked not just everybody in Cape Cod, but people across Massachusetts and New England. Will be covering it, I promise, at 2:05. But first, Matt in New Hampshire. You're up next. Go ahead, Matt.
Hi there, Jeff. I had a quick point on the James Comey question.
Yes.
And it's more that years ago, I remember, and I might be mistaken, but I'm 99% sure that Sammy the Bull Gravano is a protected FBI witness.
That's right.
Under witness protection.
Yes.
That stated, it seems incredibly reckless of Comey to use him as his talking point when that creates an obvious media firestorm where left and right, Gravano's headshot is now all over the media. Oh, I know. He just put Gravano in danger. Yeah, and I would assume there's enough common sense and discretion there. It's a quick point, but I just wanted to throw it into the mix for you. Oh, you're completely right. And Matt, great call. Very perceptive point. He could have used Al Capone. He could have used Lucky Luciano. He could have used John Gotti. But no, he names the one guy that has turned FBI informant, and of course his name and mugshot is now everywhere. His picture is everywhere. You see, that's the kind of guy James Comey is. He's a loser. Okay? Jimmy, if your mother didn't tell you, I'm going to tell you. You're a loser.
Jerry on the Cape, you're up next. Go ahead, Jerry. Comrade, how you are, my friend?
Hey, well, Comrade, I want to mention something about Mickey Cohen.
Yes.
Before we talk about Comey, that idiot.
Go ahead.
Big goofball. There has to be proof of illegal activity between Trump and Mickey Cohen to negate the attorney-client privilege, you know, Jeff. And they raided Trump Tower apartment, the Rockefeller Center office, and the Hyatt Regency Hotel room that he had, okay? They took all of his records, not just the president's records, you know. And Jeff, he has 4 high-profile clients besides President Trump. Patrick Kennedy, who he's very good friends with, as you know, Jeffrey Epstein, David Brock, and Hillary Clinton. So when they're combing through all of the evidence, because that warrant was not just for Trump, it was also for Mickey Cohen. When they're combing through all of the evidence there, Jeff, if they find any illegal activity, they can prosecute that, you know. They have to by law.
Oh, but Jerry, I bet you dollars to donuts. The only thing they're interested is any crime that Trump may have committed.
Which there's no there. But Jeff Comey, did you read the excerpt about him crying in the Oval Office with the dear leader?
Yes.
Oh, I almost vomited. But Jeff, you know, he not only incriminated himself with perjuring himself before Congress, which Trey Gowdy already made a mention of today, you know, but he said that he had dirt on Loretta Lynch not related to the Clinton matter. You know what he's talking about? HSBC, which that dope incriminated himself because he was in charge, Jeff, of compliance and security for HSBC.
Incredible. Jerry, I gotta go. Okay, tragic shooting in Cape Cod. Next.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 100.7 WZLX HD2 Boston, an iHeart radio station.